Hi, I'm Lisa Bedford and I'm the Survival Mom. And today I wanted to talk with you about a topic that comes up pretty often in survival and prepper circles, and that is hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is something that actually has been fairly common over the last 100 years or so around the globe. And here in America, we have experts who predict that hyperinflation is in our future. And just because of some comments that I read that had been left on my blog and a couple of emails, I wanted to talk about this because hyperinflation, when it comes, it sets up just the cruelest scenario for people like you and me. And I wanted to start off with a visual. I was a teacher for so many years and it's hard for me to get away from visuals. So this one is just an illustration of represents your money. This pie is your money. However much money you have in the bank, this would be pretty liquid money, because who knows in the future if you will be able to access retirement funds and how easy that will be to get at. So this is just money that is very liquid. Over here you have your income. Your money could be $1,000 in savings, it could be $1 million or more, or anywhere in between. Your income is what it is right now. Okay? Now, right now, we do know that there has been an increase in some inflation in food prices, and we've seen that up and down in gasoline prices over the last 3 years or so. But pretty much right now, there is things are holding pretty steady in terms of prices. It could be a whole lot worse, which is where hyperinflation comes in. So when hyperinflation happens, and I'm going to leave discussions for why it happens and how it happens and all of the intricate discussion and technical discussions and analyses that go with that, because my primary concern is, okay, I am looking at prices increasing at 100-200% a month. What do I do to feed my family? How do we pay our bills? That's where I'm coming from as a survival mom. So let's say that hyperinflation has arrived. Well, this is what it would look like. Your money, whatever your bank account balance is, that hasn't changed. It is still $1,000. It is still $1 million. But what it can purchase has basically caused that money to shrink. What may have started out as $1,000 may now be worth $250. And it will still say $1,000 on your bank account register, but in fact, it is going to purchase far, far less than it did back on today, June 18th, 2012. Now, at the same time, here's your income. Your income doesn't change during hyperinflation unless you have figured out a way to earn money during a time like that, and some creative people have and will. But your boss is not going to give you a nice cost of living increase just because of rising prices. Now, that may be different if you work for the federal government. But for the rest of us, our incomes won't change. In fact, we may very well lose our jobs. Our own businesses may indeed be shut down, and we have to declare bankruptcy. But over here, this is the problem. Our everyday expenses continue to increase. And hyperinflation is not measured by the year. Hyperinflation rates are measured by the month, sometimes the week. That's right. In Argentina, I read a couple of accounts that really brought this home to me. And that was a time when people would go to grocery stores, and while they were shopping, the prices were increasing. Now, you experienced this not too long ago with the increase in gasoline prices. Did you experience a time where you drove by a gas station maybe in the morning, and later on that day or the next day the prices had gone up? That is what hyperinflation is, except we would see that affecting products and services absolutely everywhere. So while your income doesn't change, you might even lose it. It might even be decreased. The amount of money you have in your account actually has lost a great deal of value. You are experiencing rapidly increasing prices on things that you need, things your family needs. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is because over the last few years, every once in a while someone will visit my blog when I post something about paying off debt, and they will say, well, why should you pay off debt? That's the most foolish thing I can think of. When the hyperinflation comes, you can just take the money that you have and pay everything off. You can live free and clear in your house. You can have your truck paid off. You can have your boat paid off. You can live a debt-free life that we've been dreaming of forever. Dave Ramsey would pat us on the backs, right? Well, that sounds good on the surface. And I suppose if your money spot right here, if this is in the millions, then I think that would probably be a very good plan. But for most Americans, this isn't in the millions. For most Americans, this might be just a few $1,000s, if that. So imagine for a second that we're going to go that route. We're going to take, let's just say that you have a couple $100,000 in the bank, which is kind of nice. And let's say to pay your home off, that's $110,000. Well, that actually sounds like a really good strategy. And you can go to your little piece of pie here, and you can say, okay, I'm going to take this much of my pie, and I'm going to pay off the house. Then you discover that it's going to cost $1,500 for your child to just go to an ER for a severe swimmer's ear. And then you discover that in order to have your car fixed, instead of maybe, a $550 repair, that same repair is now going to cost $3,500. And all of a sudden, this little bit of money here shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and you may very well begin to question the wisdom of taking this money, this is a fixed amount, taking this money and paying something off. Because your family is going to continue to need the services and the products and the goods that they need today. It's going to be a tough call for a lot of people, but I do question the wisdom of planning to accrue a lot of debt and planning on having basically hyperinflation be your golden parachute. In my opinion, that's ridiculous. So hyperinflation, because it's measured by the month, it increases just astronomically, dramatically, more than I think you and I could ever really imagine. And I have gone grocery shopping in Hawaii, and I have seen onions that are $4 and $5 each, and that to me was shocking. But imagine that being the story when you go to the grocery store every single time. And not only that, but you are experiencing prices increasing week by week by week. I pulled out some examples of real-life examples of hyperinflation around the world. And the first one I chose is Weimar, Germany. And the reason I picked this one, this was occurring between 1920 and 1923. We've all seen the pictures of, the German folk going to the grocery store with their wheelbarrows full of money. And some of them using money, for fuel, to stay warm in the winter. And understandably so. Take a look at that. The goods and services that they needed were increasing by almost 30,000% per month. That's beyond anything you and I could ever imagine. And lest you think that hyperinflation is a good thing, I suppose some positive things could come out of it. I mean, they say that there's something good in everything. But going back to Germany in the 1920s, this is what led to the rise of Hitler and his political party. The people were so desperate that many of them looked to this radical person for an answer to their problems. And so hyperinflation can usher in political problems, national security issues. It is really a bad scene for just about everyone. And by the way, interestingly, in Weimar, Germany, the people who, well, not surprisingly, who did make out okay, of course, they were the ultra wealthy. But one of the reasons they didn't suffer as much as everyone else is because they had their large estates. They were able to hire people, of course, and grow their own food. They were able to raise animals, and they were able to be self-reliant. While the people in the cities really suffered because every time they needed something, they had to head out the door and go to a grocery store or find someone to provide what they needed. The second example, Zimbabwe. This is a more modern day example. At the height of the Zimbabwe hyperinflation crisis, 2007 to 2009, their hyperinflationary rate was 2,600% per month. Again, beyond anything you and I can imagine. And in just a moment, I'm going to share with you some real-time prices to give you an idea of what hyperinflation means just to survival moms and families. The second example, Argentina, and of course I had to include Argentina because in survival and prepper circles, whenever hyperinflation is brought up, so is Argentina. And so at the height of Argentina's hyperinflationary crisis, 1989 to 1990, which also saw about half the country living at or below the poverty level. If you can imagine that, what that would do to an economy and a country. But their hyperinflationary rate was a little less than 200% per month. Big numbers, any way you look at it. Finally, I chose Bulgaria. And again, Bulgaria, their experience with hyperinflation occurred in 1997. It was not that long term, although I'm sure for the people there it was a miserable experience. And it was about 242% per month. Now, when we hear about inflation, it is in terms of per year. You know, prices in the United States, food prices increased, I'm just going to make up a number, increased by, 4.8%, this year. Well, hyperinflation is measured by the month. So to give you an example of what that would mean, right now I can go out and buy a loaf of bread for about $2.75, depending on the brand. In 1 month's time, I chose Bulgaria's hyperinflationary rate of 240% per month. In 1 month, if I buy that bread right now, June 18th, 2012, and I buy it for $2.75 for one loaf, reasonable enough, a month from now, July 18th, that same loaf of bread will be $9.63. It's going to take a lot of money in a family budget to cover that, and keep in mind, wages are not increasing. Another month down the road, August 18th, that loaf of bread would be up to $32.73. That is hyperinflation. Hyperinflation isn't anything to get giddy about. And imagine yourself living free and clear in your house, or you're, having an RV, whatever it is, paid for. Okay, that is just really a short-sighted way of looking and anticipating hyperinflation. A couple more examples. A haircut, $25 for a haircut right now. Sure, you can grab a bowl and a pair of scissors, and you can start giving haircuts. But a haircut, $25 right now, in 1 month's time, would be $85. How about a gallon of gas? Hyperinflation at 240%. A gallon of gas right now around $3.65. 1 month from now, you're paying $12.41 for 1 gallon. All of a sudden, you start realizing the implications of that. Not just for your own personal travel or your personal errands, but what about the 18-wheelers that truck in virtually everything you buy at stores, retailers around your town and city? Virtually everything comes in on an 18-wheeler. How many trucking companies can stay in business when gasoline is increasing 100%, 200% a month? And finally, last month I took my son into urgent care, and we paid $150 for that urgent care just out of our pocket. A month down the road, at 240% inflationary rate, that would be $510. Remember, your wages aren't increasing. Because of the ripple effect, you may have actually lost a job. It's going to be a tough time. The best way to prepare for hyperinflation is just to start living very, very simply right now. In my book, Survival Mom, How to Prepare Your Family for Everyday Disasters and Worst Case Scenarios, I do talk about hyperinflation and give you some ways, suggested ways to prepare. But a couple of those are just to try to live a debt-free lifestyle. Try to live below your means now. I would rather enter a time of hyperinflation with that pool of money. Hold on 1 second, let me get my little whiteboard. With this circle of money right over here, as large as it can possibly be. I would rather go into hyperinflation with $100,000 in savings, or the most amount that we can store up, than $500 in savings. Yes, that money is going to not be worth nearly as much. It'll probably be devalued, in fact. But I would rather start off into a very, very tough time period in American history with this pie being as big as possible. So that means incurring no debt, paying off every debt that we can. And lately I have been hearing stories, true stories, of American families who have decided to sell their house, to sell their property, and they purposely are downgrading to something that is smaller, something that is more in their range where they could easily make a payment. They could easily make 2 or 3 payments on that right now in today's economy. But they know that in coming tough times, they would rather have a $540 a month mortgage payment than a $1,500 mortgage payment. Self-reliance, it is all about self-reliance. So another way to prepare for hyperinflation is just to think every time I go out my door and I'm going to buy something, whether it's clothing, whether it's food, whether it's a service of some kind, what can I do to be more self-reliant in that area? And of course, food storage is just a given. Hyperinflation is a very, very cruel event to happen. I don't recall any, old signs from the 1920s. Come to Weimar, Germany. We have hyperinflation. People aren't flocking to Zimbabwe. I'm not hearing of people in Argentina who just became wealthy because they were able to sell off their homes. And I think because hyperinflation is so hard for us to imagine, that we might come up with these fantastical ideas of, incurring a lot of debt right now because we're going to pay it off during hyperinflation. So, thanks for listening, and I hope you visit me on my blog, thesurvivalmom.com. My book is Survival Mom. It's available in bookstores as well as online, Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. But I also hope you follow me on Twitter and on Facebook, because during the day I really love just posting new ideas and new tips. I let you know what's new on the blog, and I also love to answer your questions and hear from you. So I'm the Survival Mom, Lisa Bedford. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you the next time around.